You thought I was muted, didn't you? I was for a second, but I corrected myself. I feel like I'm at a little bit of a Dutch angle here, a little bit creepy, maybe. I don't know. In any case, let's fix that a little there. Camera work is not my forte, for I am the awkward GM. In this case, possibly awkward DM, I guess. If you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, you might be familiar with Scarred Lands. If not, I will be covering this from a beginner's perspective, which is what I do. I look at products from Onyx Path and sort of give my first impression. And if you're a beginner like me, you will be right at home. I know almost next to nothing to Scarred Lands. I think as far as it goes, it is a 5e adjacent property OGL. Yeah, it even has Wizards of the Coast open gaming license in the description here. Shout out to all the developers and lovely people who made this product possible. And with that, we shall go straight into the introduction. And just actually, let's just look at the index here. Man, this is a lot of the table of contents, man. You have a lot in here already. You have all the different like history of the world. You have the different races, that what classes mean in here with different subclasses. Pretty robust for a supplement. And then we've got a lot of backgrounds, feats, equipment, all the stuff you'd think of when you think of a. Ooh, I wish I had a better photo of this. It's sideways right now. You are not a true fantasy book unless you have a fantasy map. Welcome to Skarn. This world is not what it once was. Broken and battered, it was mauled in a great conflict that raged across its surface for years. The Titans, primal beings, forces of nature that created and shaped Skarn, warred with their children, the gods, who had learned to draw power from the faith of lowly mortals wandering the face of Skarn. They clashed across the world, amassing armies using creatures they created or who worshipped them. On one side were the Titans spawned, twisted monsters and foul creatures loyal to the Titans, and on the other the divine races, the mortals banded together to aid the gods. Over time, the gods were successful and the Titans subdued, but never destroyed. The gods are the sole rulers of Scar now, fueled by the devout worship of their mortal followers. Yet though the war is over, the damage remains, and it is for this reason that Skarn is known as the Scarred Lands. That great conflict, known as both the Divine War and the Titans' War, has been over for a century and a half, but the healing process was only just begun. Much of Skarn's topography has been twisted and warped in unnatural ways, and the Titans, though dormant, are not dead, yet hope remains. So yes, this is a medieval fantasy game. If you have any questions, please throw them into the chat as we go through. Like always, I will be going over the main parts of the book, and then we will be covering character creation next week. So for this one, we'll probably just go over the world, look at some of the art, and look at some of the antagonists that you can throw at your players. So we have the geography of Skarn here. It is a world filled with diverse places, all of which were affected in some way by the Titans' War. We have Gelspod. Though it is not the largest, Gelspod is the most populous continent of Skarn. Because of its dense population, this continent bore the brunt of the Titans' attacks on the armies of the gods. Much of its landscape shifted during the Divine War. Verdant savannas were smashed into desolate wastelands, and magnificent forests shriveled to lonely stands of blighted trees. Large portions of the land still crawl with Titan spawn and other dangerous creatures that divine races struggle to comprehend, let alone face. This gives me a feeling of more of a post-apocalyptic setting, even though it is a medieval game set in, well, using the Dungeons and Dragons system, like one of the things that always got to me as far as D&D settings go were they weren't unique enough. I always felt like I was just playing Tolkien fantasy for a long time until I found one of my favorite settings, Dark Sun. But this setting has a lot of promise for me as a player, as a DM. I might take this one up because I do like the idea that there was an apocalyptic event, kind of, that has sort of changed the face of the world. It's even how I run my homebrew game. So definitely something I need to check out at some point. I'm not going to go over every section, every paragraph of a continent, but I will go over the broad strokes at the top. The continent of Termina, perhaps 2 months' journey from Gelspad to the south and east, across the Blood Sea, is not densely populated. However, it is a landmass several times larger than Gelspad, a land of lush jungles and verdant forests. Terminon also hosts blighted wetlands and treacherous mountains. Some of the continent has been tamed, although other areas remain bleak and impenetrable, such as the Blood Bayou and the Isle of the Dead. There are different societies within each of these continents, so I guess I have to kind of read the second paragraph as well. The Charduni Empire is Terramon's most prominent nation, an empire of gray-skinned dwarves loyal to their severe god Chardon. Charduni. Chardon the Slaver. Gnomes and Tarali, a race of catfolk, populate the southern jungles, while courtly elves, cousins to the wild woodland elves of Gelspad, inhabit ancient, graceful forest cities. Humans dwell in these small kingdoms in the northwest or elsewhere, in tribes scattered throughout many of the continent's jungles and plains. Okay, so that seems more like a more traditional setting to me, though I guess jungles and forest cities seem more traditional to me. I'm going back to Gelspad just for a second. They've been rebuilding. There's been peace between the nations. The continent today is largely in turmoil in recent decades. King Verdict, called the Black Dragon, has sent his armies on a mission to conquest its neighboring nations and has amassed a mighty empire known as the Calastian hegemony. Okay. So we've got those two out of the way. There's Asherak. Asherak is known as the cradle of the gods. Stories tell that the Titans used this barren land to birth their divine creations, at least initially. The arid continent, dominated by deserts and scrubland, Asherak produces people who are rugged and canny, acclimated to the harsh environments in which they live. Its most prominent feature in the Desert of On is the Desert of On, which comprises a large portion of the land and is home to the cunning halflings known as Ubuntu. Asherak is also home to the Godspire Mountains, the most treacherous mountain range on Skarn. Has the tallest peaks on Skarland. And then we have Fenrilik. The continent of Fenrilik is mostly barren and desolate. Land of Skarn. Blinding snow, howling winds, and frigid temperatures are pervasive. Few choose to inhabit this land, and for good reason. Not only is the land a frigid wasteland, but legions of foul creatures dwell here. Titan worship is still prevalent throughout the continent, particularly among druids known as Ice Walkers and among winter gnomes who eke out a bare existence on the tundra. You gotta torture those gnomes, man. At the southern tip of Skarn rests a cluster of islands known as the Dragonlands. Little has ever been known about these isles, even before the Divine War. Few people from other continents have dared to venture there, and of those, none have returned. Rumors and legends suggest the islands are ruled by mythical dragons whose power rivals even that of the gods. So we've got a lot of variety in the places that we can start off our adventures here. Definitely, if I were to be running a game, I'd probably lean more into Gelspad. just because it seems like it has the majority of civilization, but also it does talk about how the entire landscape has sort of become blighted. And I like that as far as like a theme for characters to go through. I tend to like survivalist type games where you're trying to make sure that your players are on the edge of their seat, always trying to like get together enough food and supplies, in which a lot of the time I'll limit access to food and supplies through things like you create water, for instance, and good berry aren't accessible to my players and stuff like that. Any case, we shall move on. Artwork is beautiful in here. This is what you get when you have the backing of a major company to create your supplements. And just to put some things out for Onyx Path at the moment, At the Gates, which is their fantasy game using StoryPath Ultra, has currently funded double the amount that it originally needed. It's actually well over that now, and has surpassed, I think, the World Below in how many how many backers and how much it's gotten, which is awesome for the Earthbane cycle. I am highly supportive of that. Now, additionally, a lot of things that we have Onyx PathCon coming up soon. So if you want to check out Onyx PathCon, that'll be next week, the 14th to the 16th. The 14th, I know for a fact, has the Curseborn actual play, which has been always exciting for me. I've been waiting that with bated breath. Okay, as we continue on, we have the history of Skarn. We have the Divine War, which is where, for the mortal, sorry, it's been little over 150 years since the Divine War. For those mortals with relatively short lifespans, such as humans and halflings, the Divine War occurred well before this time, many generations ago. Yet for many members of other divine races, those who live for many centuries, the Titans' War is a fresh and bitter memory. Regardless, every mortal in Scar deals with the after effects of this cataclysmic war to this day. We have a little bit about before the war, where the Titans ruled Skarn. And it's people subject to their whims and caprices. They forged new lands from nothing, shaping and twisting the surface of Skarn as they desired. They created new life as well, populating Skarn with new races and creatures. Thus, it was the Titans who created sentient races, humans, elves, and orcs, elves, and more, as well as the other monsters that roam throughout the land. But the Titans were not content. Impetuous and fickle, they grew bored with lesser creatures. They created the Jinn, beings of intense elemental and magical powers, and then the lesser elementals who served the Jinn. Those beings more interesting to the Titans, to be sure, but were still found lacking. The Titans wanted beings that could approach or even match their own virtual limitless power, so they tried again. The next were the Vangal. Other gods followed, sired by the Titans. Oh, the first of their new children was Vangal. Other gods followed, sired by the Titans in a myriad of combinations, some resembling one or more of their parents in terms of temperament and disposition. And Keely the Trickster emerged from a union of two forces of wild chaos, Lethine and Gulaben. Others rejected and imposed their parents' nature. Madriel's divine radiance, for instance, is in stark contrast to her mother, Mormo, the Serpent Mother. Regardless of the relationship to the gods, the Titans knew that they had finally created beings of similar, though lesser stature. However, the gods did not always approve of their parents' desires. In some cases, the gods resented them. And that's what you get for creating entities that are essentially just as powerful as you. That is levels of hubris that could only be in a Star Trek episode. You're like, okay, we created AI. Now what we do? We let AI be human. Wait, that's a bad idea. No, don't. We let the AI be God. Perhaps more importantly, though, the young gods did not draw their power from the world in the same way as their parents, instead relying on ties to the earth and its natural and mystical forces. The gods gathered their strength from a deep connection with mortal creatures, their fellow Titanic, and their fellow Titanic. With mortal creatures, their fellow Titanic creations. Titans, for the most part, viewed mortals merely as playthings or pests, but the gods took a special interest in these lowly creatures. This is essentially when they find out, as they are prayed to, they get more powerful. The gods grew stronger and stronger in time, taken together, and they might truly rival that of their parents. The Titans were not oblivious to their children's growing power. They saw the devout men and women of Skarn worshipping the gods, and they quickly deduced that the gods' power increased with every new follower. And as their children grew more powerful, the Titans discovered a new emotion: jealousy. As a result, several of the Titans mocked and tortured their children relentlessly. Chardon suffered continually horrific torment at the hands of his parents Mormo and Gormoth. Madriel and Bellismeth, the twin children of Mormo and Messos, suffered similar fates, poisoned by the Queen of Serpents and battered persistently with arcane magic by their sire. Wonder if this is supposed to be a Titan spawn. Or maybe the gods fighting a single Titan. Who knows? The gods also witnessed the wanton destruction of faithful mortals on Skarn. Titans thought nothing of killing mortals by thousands, as they tinkered and shaped the nature of the forces on Skarn. Now that link between the god and the worshipper was understood, this destruction became crueler and more common. After a few centuries of these crimes, the gods could take no more. Though accounts may vary, the gods' first true act of rebellion was a response to a heinous crime. Harunruk, the hunter, grew bored with hunting mortal beings on Skarn and turned his sights on more difficult prey. He decided to hunt his own daughter, Tanil. After successfully tracking and catching her unaware, oh no, SA trigger warning. He left her to die. She was strong, though, and she survived. Tanil's violation infuriated the gods. They convened in a crucible lands on Asherak, a desolate place free from surveillance, and plotted rebellion. They were not enough to defeat the Titans one-on-one, perhaps, but they had to react to the Hunter's atrocities. They formed a plan. Ankili would mock and taunt Messos, the sire of sorcerers, who was physically one of the weaker Titans, leading him into a trap. It worked. The gods subdued Messos, and Banjal hacked him to bits, after which they dispersed his essence across Skarn. The first Titan had fallen, and the gods now knew what they could do to defeat their parents. Maybe this is Messos. I apologize for that trigger warning. I did not realize this is the beginner's guide, and a lot of stuff can crop up at the last second. I will do my best, though, to defend thee. The war wages. So this is where we get mostly into the fight between the Titans and the gods. The mortals, though weak on their own, could bolster the power of the gods. Better yet, the religious fervor created by their holy war could foment broader and more intense devotion among the mortals of Skarn. This devotion, in turn, would increase the gods' personal power, both temporal and celestial. So you had the gods basically creating a perpetual motion device of prayer that would eventually help bolster them so much that they would be able to defeat their parents. It's reminiscent to me very much of the the Greek mythology of the Titans of Greek myth, and versus Zeus and all the other gods in that regard. In any case, the Titans got a lot of followers and armies together from monstrous creatures and wicked races that Titan had created in its own image. Battle raged across Skarn. The divine armies clashed against the Titan-spawned legions in an open proxy war. So they would manifest regularly on Skarn to lead their battalions in person. These fierce confrontations tore the face of Skarn asunder, leaving desolation in its wake. Thousands of mortals perished, both divine races and Titan spawn alike. Nowhere in Skarn was safe from the conflict. Yet over time, the young gods proved stronger. One by one, they overcame the Titans. And though nearly every battle inflicted dreadful casualties among mortals, none of the highest gods were killed in war, but many minor gods and demigods perished, often suffering cruel deaths at the hands of the Titans themselves. As the Titans fell, their armies broke and scattered across the face of Skarn. The final Titan, Lethene, was defeated, and the gods were victorious. Yet victory came at an awful price. And then we have the landscape of Skarn was battered and torn, scarred by many years of cataclysmic conflict. Nations were ruined. Many of the gods' worshippers had fallen in battle. The Titans' broken and scattered armies, while defeated, still roamed throughout the scarred lands. And though they were generally regulated to newly desolate areas, and the Titans, though beaten and torn to pieces and banished, were not dead. Such primal, ineffable beings would still come back if the gods did not remain vigilant. The mortal survivors rebuilt, and the gods formed peace among them and resolved to keep an alliance at first, and each god agreed to keep their divine squabbles hidden from their followers. And then the alliance has grown shaky over the years. The conflicts have begun to erupt between gods and their followers across Skarn, though on a very small scale. So that's where we leave Skarn. It has become battered. People have gone off and done their own thing. And the gods are standing on the corpses of the Titans. The Titans, apparently very important to the lore of this world, are actually named out individually. We have Denev, the Earth Mother, perhaps the mightiest of the Titans. Only one of her kind to have survived the Divine War intact. Her survival was her decision to turn away from her fellow Titans and aid the divine cause. She was always considered more benevolent than the others. Theological and cosmological consideration aside, today Denev is venerated openly by druids and other mortals who work with earth and nature. A few find this Titan worship troubling despite Deven's benevolence, but most people consider it a necessary evil at worst. So Deven is very similar in my mind to Gaia from Greek mythology. I am not an expert on Greek mythology, though I will say that I did play Age of Mythology, so I know. In any case. But yeah, makes sense. Then we've got Churn, who's the creator of the plagues. We have Garok, who is the glutton. Massive tooth surrounded by teeth. We have Golthaga, Galthane. Golthaga is the shaper of the forge, a blacksmith. He shaped the troll race. Awesome. It seems like there are a bunch of. I want to know more about these races after this, but we'll probably get to that when we get to chapter 2. The Golthane is the blind one or the faceless one. At the onset of the Divine War, in fact, Deneuve said that Golthane joined her in voicing support for the gods. This earned him the wrath of his fellow Titans who blinded and beat him. His role in the war from that point forward was was little more than a victim bully into acting against his will. Oh God. Is most known for developing the gentle race of Dareth, whom the angry Titans eradicated as punishment for his disloyalty. Of Gormuth, the Warper Writhing Lord, the most spiteful of the Titans, and he particularly hated his sister Mormo, who once poisoned him and left him in agony. Seems like he seems to be very spasmy because of this. Writhe, seeking the pieces to put back together. We've got Rinrurik, the hunter, the most sadistic and cruel of the Titans, aside from Mormo. I believe we did talk about him being a very bad guy. Kadum, the Bleeding One, Mountain Shaker, sire of monsters. Sire fashioned many races of giants and behemoths. Gravely wounded. The Blood Sea. Its colors from the ichor ever pumping from the open wound in his chest. We have Lethina, Dame of Storms, the Untamed one of the two mothers of the trickster god Enkili. The more overtly brutal was Thena, who also joined in the creation of Vangal. Okay. Banished to a world of shadow. Mezos, the dismembered, the disrupted, sire of sorcery. So this is the one that basically is where arcane magic comes from, which isn't always my favorite trope in fantasy when magic comes from a god, but I'm not against it completely. And a myriad of races he created were all designed to pursue magical knowledge or wield arcane power in some way. He quickly destroyed his creations as to create them in the first place. Countless races were eradicated offhand simply because they did not live up to his expectation. Good reason to kill him first. Then we have Mormo, the Hag Queen, Mother of Serpents, Queen of Witches. Virtually any reptilian race can trace their origins back to Mormo. Partiality towards witches, hags, and her parenting of several gods. Mormo was dismembered and pieces strewn across Skarn by her son, whom she tortured relentlessly before the Divine War. And then last one we have here is Father of Fire, Thulkas. Thulkas is said to be an extension of Earth itself, an immovable force of animate lava and metal and fire. Pretty cool. I don't see anything specific about him having created races. Oh, progenitor of numerous races, especially those tied to iron or fiery elements. So those are the Titans. Those are the bad guys in this war. Then we have the gods. One thing that always surprised me about Dungeons and Dragons was that it presumed that every character would have a god that they were associated with, even if they weren't a cleric or a paladin. But uh, it it is what it is. It was. I like playing off kilter characters mainly because I got into D&D from a setting that basically killed off the gods, or as the Klingons would say, we killed our gods. They're more trouble than they were worth. Okay, so we have the gods listed here. Um, there are numerous other minor deities, demigods, and even local powers can be found throughout Skarn, but these are the 8, called collectively the Divine Victors. We have Belzameth, and I gotta say, thank you for the the pronunciation guide here, because that is something I struggle with a lot. And hopefully, if you are someone who struggles with pronunciation, you'll benefit from this as well. Twin sister to Madriel, Belsameth is the daughter of Mormo and Messos. Angelic being, where Madriel is an angelic being of light and compassion, Belsameth is a vulture wing thing of shadow and ill content, cunning, and dangerousness. When they manifest on Scar, the two sisters appear as opposites in virtually every aspect. Belthamis usually appears either a dark, voluptuous, striking, beautiful lady, or else a wretched, hideous crone. She changes forms at will, as though, and is the goddess of lycanthropes and other evil shapeshifters. She is the favored deity of assassins, cutthroats, spies, evil necromancer, and witches, and others who prefer to reside or act in shadow. It makes sense that she is one of the ones favored for witches and necromancers, because that's where I believe Mormo's portfolio was. I use the term portfolio even though it's not here, but we have Chardun, selfish and egotistical, not mindlessly violent like Vangal. He always seeks to rule by any means necessary, and he attracts followers who seek dominion over both foes and fellows alike, including through animating them as undead. While he espouses slavery and liberal use of corporal punishment as a teaching method, Chardun does not tolerate gratuitous brutality. In fact, because of his unwarranted punishment at the hands of Mormo and Gormoth, Chardun is just likely to punish a mistress for unfairly mistreating her slave as he is a slave for disobeying his master. Revered among soldiers and warlords, particularly those of a ruling class. Korean. The Avenger, Champion, Forge Father, Shining One. This one must be related to the Falcus in some way. I'm not seeing anything about Falcus here, so I guess not. He attracts followers who exhibit personalities similar to his own. He eschews compromise, favoring the rigidity of law, though he is not the arbiter of justice, for that mantle belongs to his brother, Heldrad. Coriander is frequently the instrument of its delivery, yet as champion of good as well as fair dealing, he favors punishment tempered by mercy and understanding. He tolerates any followers who demonstrate fairness, decency, honesty, and general goodwill. I wonder if there's a section here that talks about like alignment for these gods, because he definitely seems to be more of the lawful good type, whereas Chardun seems to be more not lawful evil, but maybe closer to lawful neutral. I mean, there are 8 of them, so technically I think each one of them can be associated with a alignment. And Keely, shapeshifter, storm god or goddess, trickster, and unlucky. Though he was born male, he does not identify as such in truth, and Keely does not seem to have any preference either way and often presents as either gender and sometimes both. I was just checking because I'm like, oh, but he uses he him pronouns, but then maybe they use they pronouns later on. I I don't know when this book came out. But also there is that whole like which grammar school or like which of the schools of grammar are you using in regards to gender neutral pronouns or defaulting to he him. Known by many names, and Keely is ambitious in nearly everything, attracts rogues, thieves, gamblers, and other unsavory types. Sailors, it could be a blessing or a curse. Then we have Herdrada, the son of Denev and Galthane. The judge, the lawgiver. He is not at all merciful, but neither is he needlessly cruel. Devotion to him means accepting a rigidly dispassionate worldview. So he definitely seems more lawful neutral than the previous gods I've mentioned before. Protector of the city of Hedrad, whose citizens espouse his virtues. Okay. Madriel, angel of mercy, polar opposite of her twin sister, though her intention is always to bring succor to those who need it. She is a very capable warrior when combat cannot be avoided. Her armor shimmers from sunlight itself. With divine light, and her spear is made from sunlight itself. Still, she is inclined to believe that no creature is beyond redemption. If she feels she can help a wretched creature overcome its own wickedness without resorting to violence, she will seek to do so. Tanil, the archer, goddess of travel, good fortune, hunting, and personal freedom. She is fond of taking the form of an elf warrior maiden or fierce manticora when she is not in human guise. Peerless at archery and tracking, were instrumental in defeating many of the Titans. And now we have Vangal. The eldest of the gods, Vangal is more like his titanic parents than any of the other siblings and cousins. He thrives on spilling blood. He cherishes only the violence of battle, yet he is not greatly impressed with victory. He is worshipped not in churches but on the battlefield. Ruthless, vicious, cruel, and often sadistic. That is definitely a chaotic, evil god if ever I saw one. Okay, now that we've gone over that, only first 17 pages. And there are a lot of pages in this book. If I go to the back page here, it's over 300 pages. And I am just giving you the first slice of the cake here. We have 20 minutes left. Let's continue on. Now we have the races of Gelspad. We have some nice artwork here of some of the characters. I don't know what this blue skin one is, but I definitely see we have something that looks like a gnome or a halfling, and then we have the cat people that were mentioned before. So we have the divine races and the redeemed. After the war, gods, under the auspice of the lawgiver, offered asylum to any Titan spawn who sought it. So these were the races that fought for the Titans. And then they agreed to worship the gods instead, seeking peace with the divine races of Skarn. Many Titan spawn scoffed and wished to continue war rather than defect to the other side. So this is where you get not all races are evil, not all races are good. Some are like people have basically are more independent. So we have here those who agreed became known as the redeemed. The law is recognized in most cities and nations of Gespald. Gelspad. One notable exception is the Calistine hegemony, where people of nearly any race other than human are considered second-class citizens, even if they are allowed citizenship at all. Gelspad, there are 4 races from which most of the redeemed hail. Asathi, Ironbred, Orcs, and Slytherin. Man, that last one. Out of habit, these races are collectively referred to as redeemed, though in fact there are many individuals and groups among who remain loyal to Titans. There are still tribes and sects of rogue serpentfolk, orcs, and Slytherin, for example, who serve the Titans as opposed to the gods and their worship. Yet any former Titan spawn who forsakes the Titans and swears Hedron's vow may claim the title. So there may also be former Titan spawn individuals or groups of other less common races that call themselves redeemed. So we have the core races, though. Most of the races from the core rules that appear in this chapter, dwarves, elves, and halflings, have been given one or more extra racial traits. In addition, the new races appearing here, Asathi, Hollow Legionaries, Manticora, Orcs, and Slytherin, are built to be similarly powerful, each in their own way. If you plan to use the new races from this chapter in another non-Scarred Lands campaign, be sure to look closely at their relative power and consider removing 1 or 2 racial traits to balance them out with other standard races. Okay. Oh, and it says here that if you bring other races in that aren't in here, you can like give them an appropriate racial trait to make them similarly powerful. So the Asathi are the most prominent of the redeemed races created by Moromo millennia ago. The Asathi were one of the first races to conquer Gelspad. So this is legged serpent folk. And it seems like Scarred Lands might have a lot of reptilian races, because they do mention that Mormo is sort of like the serpent queen and created a bunch over the years. Any case, we have the physical description, the society. I'm going to sort of speed through that just a little bit here. As a people, the Asathiri are clannish and they live and travel in large social units. Politics may play an important role in their life, since numerous varieties and philosophies exist among the many clans found throughout Skarn. Each is governed according to a strict hierarchy, and larger clans are often feudal in nature. They have a large city known as the Jeweled City, also known by others as the Great Lost City. Their urban society is calcified into strict social classes governed by a robust and elegant bureaucracy, often serving either a monarch or elected prime minister. Okay. We have to talk about alignment here. They do tend to be lawful. They do tend to be adventurers, travel the land to rediscover the lands of the Asathi empires of yore. It could be a diplomatic exercise and a bunch of other things. Let's get into the rules a little bit for D&D. Of course, this is a D&D OGL book that I'm looking at. They're typically 5 to 6 feet tall. They can live to be over 200 years old, reaching adulthood around 20. You get dexterity as your +2, intelligence as your +1 score. They have training in falchion, scimitars, and warfans. They have resistance to poison damage. They have a bite that does piercing damage. They have dark vision. They have saving throws against being charmed. But what if a snake charmer comes up to them? Mm-mm. And then you have keen senses and dark vision. So, interesting. I'm not much of a lizard type person, but they're kind of cool. Unique to the setting. We've got dwarves here. I'm not going to really touch on dwarves too much. It seems like they do get some extra stuff here for being a Chiduni dwarf. Your strength score increases by 1. You have combat training in several weapons, and you get 1 hit point extra per level. That increases by 1 every time you gain a level. So maybe you get 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. I don't know. Kelder dwarves have different weapon training, and they have the steadfast rule, which gives them advantage on saving throws against charmed and, being frightened. And +1 to wisdom. Then we've got the elves. Again, I'm going to just try and speed through this one. I believe elves, dwarves are divine races. I don't know why humans are divine races, because maybe they're not, but we'll get into that in a bit. But I thought they mentioned that humans were created earlier on by the Titans. The Drendali are the dark elves or the deep elves because they live underground. Once mighty and prosperous, the city is now a shell of its former self. The deep elves wage a half-hearted war against the dwarves in a standoff about the underground tunnels. Not everyone supports the war. Some resist the war effort. They have a noble bearing and carry themselves with dignity. Some would say arrogance. White gold hair, skin so pale as to make it seem they are almost pure white. Their eyes, however, are not those of an albino, but the lustrous blues, greens, golds, and violets of their surface cousins. You have the Ganju elves, widespread across the country of continents. Aerial archers. Okay, we've got some Drendali elf abilities. They have dark vision. They have some training in weaponry. They have some magic, such as mage hand and minor illusion. The Ganju's elves have dark vision, special combat training, and then they have the natural stealth ability, which allows them to hide even if they're lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, or falling snow. So these two remind me very similar of like high elf, wood elf. We've got the halflings. No hair on the feet, I see. I do like the look of these halflings. They've got slightly larger heads, like the ones in the 5e book, but I don't think it's as prominent as 5th edition's halflings. In any case, going down here, we do have the halfling racial traits. They did mention that the halflings are in a desert environment, I think, normally. So, special abilities, they've got the lucky, they've got brave, they've got combat training and blow darts, blowgun, darts, slings, and spears. They've got nimbleness, stealth, and some extra talent stuff. This is one of the newer races. This is the Hollow Legionaries. The spirits of heroes who fall when stakes are highest can linger in the world for centuries. But there are peculiar spirit constructs known as Hollow Knights of the Gleaming Valley who have collecting lost souls into 5 great spires at the heart of their realm. From here, by means of some powerful esoteric ritual, those souls who desire another chance to complete their duties or roles are imbued with new life and are welcomed into the Gleaming Legion. They are bound to a suit of armor. They have no memory of their previous life. They have distinct personalities and general knowledge of how the world works. They also have hopes, fears, wants, and needs like any other living being. They're restrained and cautious. I'm guessing they lean more towards lawful. It seems though they lean more towards good and neutral though. Sometimes there are some evil ones. They get to have 2 different ability scores of your choice increased by 1. Is created mature, but legionaries rarely leave the Gleaming Valley for 5 to 10 years. Have until 5 or 10 years have passed. The oldest among them have not yet lived 40 years old, but it's unknown how long they might live. They can be 6 feet and tall, but weigh little more than 100 pounds. But they're medium. Armor bound. Your soul is bound within a suit of armor, which makes up much of your physical form. You have proficiency in light armor. You can only be bound to 1 suit of armor at a time. During a short rest, you can take 1 hour to bond to another suit of armor you have proficiency in, provided it is constructed in such a way it covers most of the humanoid's body. So it takes on your inherent style, and if you bond to magic armor that needs attunement, the attunement can occur as part of this bonding process. Okay, that's pretty cool. You're a construct, but you do not need to breathe, eat, drink, sleep, unless you wish to do so to gain some beneficial effect. Magic can't put you to sleep. During a long rest, you remain awake and can engage in light activity for the entire 8 hours while still benefiting from rest. Your nature is semi-living, though. You are susceptible to death, disease, exhaustion, and poison, but you have advantage saving throw against these threats, including the death save. You are resistant to damage. You have advantage on saving throws against charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. We already talked about that. And other creatures have disadvantage on wisdom insight checks to determine your emotions. If you die, your spirit fades from your bound armor after 1 minute, and then the armor loses your inherent style. After you fade, nothing is left behind that can be considered part of your body, and you cannot be brought back via a raised dead spell. But you can, however, be brought back with a resurrection spell. You remember bits of your past life. However, when you select skill during character creation, add any 1 skill to your list of choices. Okay, and you also have like a legionary language. Okay, now I need to figure out if humans are a divine race or not. Doesn't mention here. They worship the entire pantheon of the gods. The general who needs to win the battle prays to the various ones. Yeah, it doesn't mention it. I'm guessing they're a divine race. maybe it was just a misspoken thing from before. The Iron Bread. Hulking Iron Bread. Still, the vicious, bloodthirsty raiders known as Satak still plague the Uruk Desert and its surrounding environs, but none hate them more than the self-styled Ironbread. Sutak, who have renounced the titan that created them and joined the ranks of the redeemed. Now they seek to redefine themselves in a world that still tends to view them as enemies. They seem pretty cool. The Iron Court is mostly a notable society of ironbred in Gelspod. Though slow to trust, the ironbred cherish loyalty and thus take great care in interactions with outsiders. Another prominent group of ironbred are the Iron Raiders, a cavalry unit based out of the Gleaming Valley, descended from Divine War. Captives of Sutak, these coverts to Korean are often found with hollow legionaries. Okay. So they're going to get your dexterity and constitution increases. Most live less than a century and reach decrepitude a little faster than humans do. High at 6 feet tall, weigh close to 200 pounds. They have dark vision. Fireborn, you have advantage to saving throws to avoid exhaustion due to extreme heat or thirst. In addition, you have resistance to fire damage. You have some combat training and some weapons. You have tough hide, which gives you an extra point of health each level. You have some proficiency in tools. You are unnerving. You gain proficiency in intimidation. Let's see. Manticora. These are the cat people that were presented before. Sentient lion folk. Great cats and humans. They are in the peripheраted plains and the Haggard Hills. They were once the chosen of Vangal, and the Manticora fought ably beside their father during the Divine War. Vangal more or less left them behind to their own devices, and they have begun to civilize themselves. It is mentioned before that I'm trying to remember what the god's name is. Hanil actually does take on the form of a Manticora sometimes. Society. The Manticora are traditionally nomadic people. Each pride is led by the strongest male in the group, although some powerful females have turned this rule on its head. Some of the more violent tribes are on the peripheраted plains. Still somewhat loyal to Vangal, have formed a loose union with the bleak savannas proud. Centaur-like leonine creatures. Okay, so they admire storytellers, keepers of history, and perhaps because the race has not existed for a very long time relative to the others, skalds and bards are common among them, valued by their pride. They prefer oral tradition compared to written. They can vary toward chaotic. Many can be evil by human standards. Good Manticore are not unheard of, but they are rare. Wonder if it says here if they're. I guess they're more chaotic than lawful. Ability score stuff. You're going to get dexterity and either wisdom or charisma. You have dark vision. You do have an increased land speed of 40 if you go on all fours. They're around 6 feet tall. Keen senses means proficiency in perception. Manticora combat training gives them access to some extra weapons that they can be proficient in. You add stealth and survival to your list of choices as a natural hunter. You have natural weapons, such as your bite that deals 1d4 piercing damage and claws that deal 1d4 slashing. If you do a Monk's Martial Arts feature with an improved unarmed damage, you instead deal normal unarmed damage strike with your claws attack instead. Okay. We've got the orcs. I'm going to speed through that. And then we've got the Slytherin, because we're almost at time. We're a little over time, but... So the Slytherin are rat folk. I was expecting them to be snakes. There's me being, like, little too literal with the name. Mindless creature, frenzy, and predatory. Within a surprisingly short time, they evolved to become intelligent, cunning, and deadly army for the Titans. They found themselves freed, whole groups of them at a time. Most rat folk used this as an opportunity to elevate themselves above barbarism. Enclaves sprang out throughout the Skarn, especially in cities. The divine races, for the most part, still occupied by the war, paid little attention to this diaspora at first. In some cases, the rats folk were actually welcomed as a form of cheap labor. They are the best assimilated of the redeemed races, even if they're not always trusted at an individual level. They have little culture or history of their own, and as a race, they're still adjusting to being more than just slaves to the Titans. The prevailing theme among the rat folk is novelty. Theirs is a culture of the new. Slytherins are not ones to care about tradition. Their society reflects this worldview. They've got dark vision. They got bite. They are medium? They rarely stand above 5 feet tall, but they are considered medium. Okay. At 60, they are considered truly ancient. They get constitution, dexterity, or intelligence increases. They do have a bite that deals 1d3 piercing damage. They are contortionists, which means they get advantage on dexterity checks to escape. They have dark vision. They are disease resistant, so they have saving throws against disease. Rodent empathy. They can communicate simple ideas with such beasts. Sure-footed. They have proficiency in... they can take the proficiencies in athletics, acrobatics, and stealth, even if they're not part of their character creation class stuff. They have some weapons as well. Each of the new races also seem to have their own languages. Yeah, they're mentioned here. That is one beautiful piece of art. I like it. I like it a lot. We're going to go into the classes next time and much more of the character creation stuff. I did want to sort of jump over to the Titan spawn, look at some of the images over here. We have a variety of the different reptilian races. We have some cool creatures and such here, such as this Blade Beast, the Blight Wolf, Blood Reaper. There are a lot of cool creatures here. A lot of crazy creatures that are kind of like I might have nightmares about. But as far as this goes, I'm actually really excited about this this campaign setting. It's a lot more unique than other campaign settings I've seen. It definitely hits a post-apocalyptic setting vibe for me. Like, there's rebuilding though, so it's a lot less post-apocalyptic than it normally would be. But I like the idea of going into, I think it was Gelad. Yeah, one of the like first Gelspad. I think Gelspad would be where I'd want to set my setting initially, just so that I can like check out the various different like crazy areas that have been destroyed by the Titans during the Divine War. Okay, and with that, we got to the back of the book. There's a lot more to this. I haven't even touched like half of this book. not, I haven't even touched a fifth of this book probably. And in case, thank you so much for watching. If you want to check me out, I'm the Awkward GM Corbin. You can find me on YouTube at the Awkward GM Corbin. And I recently just put out a video about Chronicles of Darkness antagonists, which Onyx Path also helped write those books. So check that out if you can. If you want to check out The Bloody Burrows, it is a book that I helped write with a few people at Onyx Path for Trinity Continuum's Assassins. It is a book about assassins in New York City. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna head out, and thank you again for watching. Have a good one. Peace.